Hello and welcome! Episode 2 of The Successful Stylist Unfoiled. Today, my guest is Owen McCarthy, who is a barber from Ireland originally, but now living in Melbourne, Australia. So, we talk a bit about how that happened and how he was able to make the transition from Ireland to Australia and be so successful. He's got like 16,000 followers or something on Instagram, and he's had a really successful journey in hairdressing, and he's only been in the industry for about 5 years, which I think is quite rare to have success so soon. We dive into how he got into hairdressing and he's a barber, but all of that, and how he is now sponsored by a clipper company and a scissor company and educates for them around the world. So he's been to China, and I think for people who aren't in it or aspire to be like that, it just seems unattainable. And how do you end up working for a company and educating in China? So he walks us through the process of how it was actually quite organic for him, and how networking at events and classes and actually participating in classes yourself, not just educating as the educator, is really so helpful. So it's quite a deep convo. It's not quite as giddy as Brian and I were on our last episode, but he is a wealth of knowledge for only being in the industry for not that long of a time. He's won so many awards. He was the 2016 Irish Apprentice of the Year, Barbering Apprentice of the Year, which is quite huge in your first year to win an award. I think we all might know, that seems like unattainable. Again, all these things. So I really wanted to sit down and talk to him and see how he's been able to have so much success so quickly. So let's dive into Owen McCarthy and myself. Okay, so I am here with my second guest, and I would like to give you a nice Irish welcome. Hell yeah! That's the extent of my Someone's gonna kill me. He's gonna be like, "You're gonna break me drum."
No, thank you very much for having me on.
Oh my God, I'm so excited that you were willing to do this.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I really, I guess I'm excited for you starting this new journey with the interviews and the podcasts and stuff like that. It's great.
Hey.
You're using your time quite well throughout this lockdown to get like something new started.
Well, we're both in Melbourne in lockdown, aren't we? So there's not really much for us to be able to do. So I was just finding myself going a bit stir crazy. And what I love about the industry is the social interaction and the talking and getting to have conversations with our clients and our colleagues, like that's the fun of why most of us are a hairdresser. And I'm like, how am I going to fill that talking void? And I thought I might as well start kind of having these conversations of things that I've wanted to know anyway, and record it and see if it, anything comes of it. And I'm sure if I have questions, other people do. So
definitely. I was actually speaking to one of the boys this morning about that. One of the guys I work with. We were just out for a little bike ride, and they were saying it's going to be weird when we go back actually socializing and interacting with people again. It's just we're used to only talking to a few people.
Yeah, and I feel like it's given us this uncomfortable thing about being around people. Even like one of my girlfriends lives down the street, and I even asking her to go for a walk, I'm like, is that okay? Like, am I allowed to actually do that? Like, it's put this weird thing that all you want to be is with people, but then you like are afraid to be with people. It's so strange, especially for people like us who are always surrounded by people and talking and in close proximity.
Yeah, I've quite enjoyed the bit of downtime as well, and some time to myself. I guess I was used to it before I was actually in the hair industry. I used to spend a lot of time by myself, and like in my own head and stuff. So it's kind of nice to just get that little bit of a breather. It's like a forced break, because you know what it's like yourself when you're working in the shop. You very rarely have a break, or you rarely give yourself a break, I should say, because we're just like that kind of on the move type of people, aren't we, as hairdressers or barbers?
Yeah,
we're just always go.
Totally.
So it's been a lovely time.
Well, you saying that, like what you did before hairdressing and being in your head and all this stuff, I would love to give you the opportunity to kind of give yourself a little intro if you wanted, and just maybe tell me maybe how you got into hairdressing? Or I know you're a barber, but what you did maybe before that, or yeah, a little
Yeah.
snippet
So
of you.
I'll try and condense this as much as possible. I
No,
always say
we got nowhere to be, so
I
I'm all
have to
ears.
start whenever I start education now, or classes, or anything where I'm like presenting my work. I always start it off and I'm like, okay, this is like the part that I hate the most, where you have to talk about yourself for like
Yeah.
5 minutes and just give yourself like quick little synopsis. But so I started hairdressing or barbering, as you could say, whatever you want to call it, about 5 years ago. Before that, when I left school, I was actually a professional cyclist. So I went full time cycling from when I was 18 until I was 17, really, until
My
I was about
gosh, what does
20.
that even mean? A professional cyclist? Like you get paid to ride your bike? Don't laugh at me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So it's like yeah, you just get paid. I was on a team in Europe, a couple of different teams in Belgium. So I was based in Belgium, and you have like a trade team sponsor, and I was riding with the Irish national team and stuff like that. So you just
incredible.
get like your wage to race bikes pretty much. But that was like something that was just natural progression from when I was a kid, and you do anything as a young kid, you just aspire to be like, if you're a footballer, you aspire to play in the Premiership type of thing.
Yeah,
So
totally.
my version was like cycling. So I did that for 4 years. And how I got into hair, a lot of people always ask is like, geez, that's quite a big career change that you've had, like going from like riding bikes to like now you're cutting hair. Like how does that happen, or what happened there? But it's quite simple, really. I've always been around the salon environment because my mom is a hairdresser. So she's had a salon for about 30 years now in my hometown. So she's been
And
around.
where is your hometown?
So I'm from Cork in Ireland originally.
Cork. I always say
Obviously went
Irish cities are like, my boyfriend's gonna kill me, but like easy. I'm like, like Cork, Mayo, like simple, small. I can remember them. Like
one
Mayo, Nays. That's how I remember
one
where he's from.
one syllable. That's all we need.
Yeah, little
But
simple
yeah.
names. I like it.
So I'm from Cork in Ireland, and obviously we're in Australia now. But I'll get to that part
All
when
right,
when I
I'm
move.
sitting waiting.
But I so yeah, when I finished cycling, it was kind of like I ran out of talent, I guess, with cycling, and I ran like when you start doing something that you're passionate about and it becomes work, it just kind of got a little bit labor, like it became almost like a chore, I should say.
Mm.
So I just thought, I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. I was having a lot of bad accidents, and obviously I'd given up everything to be a cyclist. I wasn't really, I was completely had like tunnel vision. I had complete tunnel vision with cycling, and I never saw myself doing anything else. But when I finished up, I was kind of sitting around for a few weeks, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I did know I'd missed the traveling aspect of cutting hair, or sorry, of cycling.
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I going to do? So I just started cutting my friends' and family's hair and stuff. And in my hometown, I wasn't really planning on becoming a hairdresser or a barber. It wasn't really something that I ever really thought of, even though my mom's a salon owner and a successful hairdresser in her own right. It just wasn't something that I thought of. But I started to really enjoy it actually after a few weeks, and it was making me a bit of money. And I was like, I went and did a few other job interviews. Funny enough, my brother actually works. So my family are in the motor business as well, like the motor trade. So my brother works at Mercedes, and I actually interviewed for his job like before he got it. So it's kind
Oh,
of funny.
really?
So yeah, that's how I kind of got into the hair industry. So I was cutting hair, and I built quite a good, I guess, clientele in my hometown.
How did you have your training? Like for me, like I went to college, I went to hair school, and then I did an apprenticeship after that. So I had like 4 years of training where it seems like you just naturally were good at it, or how did that happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go the conventional route with it. I guess in Ireland and in the UK, there's not really any specific qualification that you need to be able to work in the industry. I know
Okay, so you don't need a license or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's different in a lot of different countries. Like over here, and I think especially in America. And
Oh my God, yeah, they're very.
You need like to be going to hair school to get your certificate or whatever.
Yeah.
But initially I kind of just learned. I was mostly self-taught really. My mom taught me a lot at the beginning to do with the scissors. So I kind of started my hair journey, I guess, in the mindset of a hairdresser. So she taught me how to operate the scissors and work with the scissors
Oh,
and stuff and
cool.
different shit. And then I actually started up a 6-month barber course, which is part-time. It was once a week. And that's where I kind of learned to fine tune my clipper work. But I kind of took to the clipper work pretty natural anyway. So yeah, I kind of condensed down my apprenticeship, I guess, into almost like a year. From almost the get-go, I was working 6 days a week.
So
12.
cool. And you were working for your mom at that point?
I was working for myself in her shop, so I just rent the chair from her. When I got she gave me the first few months, she kind of just let me work there for free. And then when I started becoming when I started making some money, I was living at home too, so I was paying her rent.
You better start paying your way, you mooch.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to do that, for her as well, and because I was taking up a spot in her shop. But yeah, so I pretty much condensed my training down into about a year, I guess. But I'm still, this is the thing, we're always training,
Yeah, totally.
always
Such a good point.
But my initial training, I should say, was condensed into a year. So I was pretty confident with my ability after that year. And I guess that kind of came from on-the-job experience too, which I feel like is the most important thing in the training process, because you really have to trust your intuition when it comes to that kind of stuff when you're in front of clients and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of fast-tracked it by doing 12 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week. I was doing
crazy,
like 20 hours a day or something. Yeah, so it was like I really went full hands-on into the industry. And after about a year, I got the opportunity to come to Australia. My cousin was getting married out here, who'd moved over from my hometown. So I saw that as a good opportunity, because when I was cycling, I never got the chance to kind of come over here and visit my cousins and stuff.
So you'd never been to Australia before?
I was here once when I was 9. One of my mom's best friends lives in Perth. So we came over when I was 9. But yeah, I can't really remember it, When you're 9, you don't remember that much. But then I hadn't been to Australia as in my adult life, So I just came here. I just saw it as an opportunity initially I thought I'd be here for a year. I didn't really.
Don't we all?
I was like, I'll just go for a year, have a break from what I'm doing, because in my hometown, I built up that much of a clientele and that much of a business for myself that I thought, like, okay, I'm kind of set up here now if I want it,
Yes, that's exactly the same as me. Exactly the same.
So yeah, I was just like, I need to get out of here and have a little break and do something different for a while first before I'd settle into that kind of role or job, I guess. But
had you always thought about moving overseas and living somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, like when I finished cycling, the main thing I was going to, like I said, the main thing I would have missed would have been the traveling. And when I was living in Europe, Belgium was our base, but we were traveling all around Europe for different races and stuff. And it's just like a nice feeling to be on the road. Like I just loved that feeling.
Cool.
So I always kind of wanted to live overseas, and I say this a lot in different things like this, but in my hometown, you can only, like, it's a small town, it's only 15,000 people or something. So there's only so much you can really do. Like, and I felt like I reached my potential very quickly there.
Yeah.
So I needed to move somewhere like Melbourne where I could kind of expand my skill set and different things like that. So I moved here after a year. When I first initially got here, I think I was here about a week, and I got a phone call from Ireland saying that I'd won Irish Apprentice of the Year for barbering.
Oh my God.
So that was kind of the kickstart that I needed over here as well. It kind of gave me a little bit of confidence. I was like,
you can put that on the top of your CV, eh? Be like, I'm Irish Apprentice of the Year, so you should hire me.
So I was like feeling, quite confident in myself at that point in my skills and stuff. But then when I went to Area Studio where I work now, it kind of brought me back down to the zero again. I was
It's
like,
so funny when you've only worked, say, at one place or like you said in this small town, and you are the best. Like I thought I was the best at my salon. You know, I worked in this massive salon and I really built my clientele up so quick and I was pumping it out. And I had the highest PPC and all this stuff. And then I came here and I have no clients. I don't know anybody and everything is different. And you're like, oh, fuck, like who am I? You know?
I know, definitely. And that's how I felt, you know, like I felt like, okay, like before I started working, I remember being at the shop. The second day I arrived in Australia, I went to the shop. So I kind of had the job before I got here,
How did
semi
you
set up.
manage that for anybody who I guess is thinking about moving overseas? I think that's a big thing. I felt like I had to have a job lined up before I moved and I was like, oh, I absolutely like I sent my CV out all over Melbourne and had Sydney was my plan originally and I sent it out and I
Mhm.
needed in my head to have a job before I moved. And it just kind of doesn't always work out that way. And so did you have it before you moved here?
Yeah, so I went to do a course in Dublin before, about 6 weeks before I moved to Australia. Now I planned, this was around August time, about 4 years ago now. Um, and I planned to move, or not move to Australia, but I planned to come to the wedding around Christmas time. So
Yeah.
it wasn't exactly like anytime soon, but I went to do a course in Dublin with a company called Menspire, and they had just been over here for Hair Expo at the time, and they were
Good
in
old
Melbourne,
hair
and
expo.
they actually did some education at Area Studio where I work now. So I remember being on that course, and I just inquired with the head of education at Menspire, Josh. I just said to him, "Look, I'm moving to Australia. Do you have any recommendations or anywhere you think that would suit me for work or whatever?" And he literally just pulled out his phone and texted Jordan, my boss now,
Yeah.
and said, "Are you guys like still looking for somebody?" And he said yes. And then he was like, "When do you need them?" And he was like, "Well, now." And I was just like, "Well, just give me 6 weeks, to wrap everything up in my hometown, let everybody know I was going away, because I knew it would upset a lot of people, especially my family too. I'd already been living away from home since I was 17 and stuff,
Yeah,
so I
they'd be
didn't want to
happy to
just
be
spring
just
on.
getting you back, and then here you are going again.
Yeah, so I didn't want to be like really springing it on them, like, oh, I'm moving to Australia in 2 weeks, like so. Um, 6 weeks it was in the end that they had to.
That's wild.
Had, so then I just moved here, and the second day I got here, I went to Area Studio, started working straight away, and I've been there ever since. But like going back to that point initially, it was like when I first got to the shop, it was crazy because I thought I was great in my hometown. I was like, yeah, I'm, doing the best fades, doing the best like men's haircuts in my hometown, and now I'm here and I'm back at the bottom. It's like going into secondary school, when you go from
Hmm.
primary school to secondary school.
Yeah.
That's what it was like for me. And I remember watching like some of the boys' haircuts like passing in the mirrors behind me when they were leaving, and I was like, the only time I've ever seen fades or haircuts like that was on Instagram. Like
Yeah.
they seemed like Photoshop, but these boys were doing that kind of stuff in real life, and I was like, wow, okay. But like I kind of thrive in situations like that, especially coming from my cycling career. I always used to do better in the races that were perceived as harder. Like, I kind of rise up to the level of the place where I'm at. And I think it's important to surround yourself or put yourself in the deep end a little bit. And it's
Totally.
kind of a sink or swim situation. And
That's the only way you grow. And I think it's hard when you are in that position where you think you're the best. It feels good when you're that person, when you're the
yeah,
the
yeah,
teacher's
yeah,
pet or the favorite employee or the star of the show and it feels
yeah,
great, but you need that step
yeah.
down to
I
grow.
kind of feel like I've achieved everything that I can achieve when I feel like that, and I want to move on. Like I remember saying, like a couple of weeks before I moved to Australia, or before the opportunity came about, I just remember being out for a walk with my mom, and I remember it very clearly, and just remember saying to her, like, there's more to it than this, like what I'm doing right now. Like I know there's more to it than this.
As in being
And
behind the chair, like you could see yourself doing more than just working in the salon or the barber shop.
yeah, yeah, I could
Yeah.
see myself, like I could just see there was more to it than that in my hometown, being the big fish in the small pond. Like there was more to that like I knew that I had more in me and I was capable of more than that, and there was more to offer, like from the industry as well. Like, you know, I was like, okay, I need to go and explore that and have my
That's
own
exactly how I felt
journey.
too. And that's a conversation I
Yeah.
just had with my last guest, Brian, who
Okay.
I used to work with at my hair salon. And I used to think, like, you know, when I worked at the salon, I would get all these opportunities to travel and I got to go all over America to classes and shows, and I loved it. And that's exactly what I wanted. And that's what made me realize that there was so much more, that I could be on stage if I wanted to, or, you know, the thought came, those were when those moments happened that I was like, oh my God, I could do so much more with this. But that there's
Yeah.
people who don't want that. And I think that's something that
Yeah.
I've come to learn, being like, it doesn't mean that they are less passionate or don't love hairdressing or all these things. It's just different. And for so long, I couldn't understand those people and be like, I don't get how you don't see that you could do this or this or this, but they're content going to the salon and
Mhm.
being behind the chair and going home, and that's it. That's what they love to do. But the
For
point of
sure.
these conversations, and I love that you've said that, is that's what I want to talk to people who have that little extra oomph of being like, there's more to this. And that's how I feel, that I'm
Yeah.
meant to do something more with hairdressing in this industry. And that's where I want these conversations to go, and how you get to that point.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what, I'll probably bring it back to this point a few times throughout like this chat, but I really do feel like it comes from my sporting background and
Yeah.
like that ability to be able to dream of something bigger than what, you know, I always have thought like I want to reach my maximum potential in whatever I do. And I don't really care. I'm not really that much of a competitive person, which is kind of bizarre to think, you know, because I obviously entered some competitions and now and stuff, but it's not really for the competitive aspect. It's more of a challenge for myself. And same with cycling. I feel like that's part of why cycling didn't really work out for me. I probably didn't have that real kind of competitive edge in me. It's more like an internal thing. Like I loved the process of training and working towards a goal and achieving that goal and feeling that sense of pride when you get there, and then immediately putting it under the rug and then moving on to the next one. So like I feel like it comes like that feeling and that chat that I had with my mom that day, that comes from my cycling career and wanting to reach my maximum potential and, you know, really explore everything that I possibly can within whatever I do, you know. And then that will just ultimately, I guess, make me happy, you know, or fulfill me. Because I felt like after a year in my hometown, I reached like, what more could I do, you know?
Yeah.
I couldn't really do anymore. It was time to move on, and it's you know, sometimes you got to just know when the time is to move on and do it for yourself and be brave enough to do that, you know. So
Totally.
but yeah, it's even like understanding, like you mentioned something there about understanding other people too. Just because I'm like that and you're like that, it doesn't mean that everybody has to be like that, you know. Like,
Or that they're
and
not good hairdressers because they don't have that. And I think
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And you know, I've obviously stepped into more of an educational type of role now as well, and I really have to understand that as an educator too. And I've seen that um, throughout my journey of education so far. It's like you really have to understand, you know, someone as a person before you can kind of teach them anything, you know, and understanding that it's okay for them to do and be on their own journey as well. They don't have to be doing the same stuff as you. So like coming in from a place of non-judgment with everybody as well is really important, I feel, in the educational standpoint, like of the industry too, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's got so many dimensions to it, and the hair industry, it's very like, since I started doing hair and initially going back to my story and coming through and understanding the hair industry from the start, I remember very early on just discovering Instagram and the hair world within Instagram.
Yeah.
And that is what really gave me them kind of, I guess, visions or dreams. Like I've seen people on stage and presenting their work and traveling around the world and doing all these amazing things with hair that I never really saw. As I never thought about the hair industry like that, because my mom, she's a very successful salon owner, but she never really stepped into that side of the industry because that's
different
not wasn't for
world.
her. yeah, she was content and she's happy running her fully booked shop, very successful shop. You know, she's got a lot of personal success out of it too. She's sitting quite happy and comfy now, like, and she's just happy with that. But
Yeah.
I think the sporting background and stuff like that, real kind of drive and work ethic, kind of means that living a life like hers just isn't enough for me personally. I wanted to like push things to the absolute limits that I could. And if I fail in doing that, then I don't even care, you know, like.
That's exactly what I've said. I'm like, if this is a flop, I don't care. I did it for myself. And like, who am I trying to do anything for other than myself?
Exactly. And, you know, if you get the external gratification, then great. Actually, I've been writing some blogs recently, and I wrote one for this week for the Cutthroat Journal, and it's kind of talking about that point about, like, you know, being happy with what you have while you work for what you want. It's kind of like touches on that point of like not really caring. You shouldn't be seeking that external gratification. You should have that feeling internally always, and that's kind of where that side of the industry came from for me, I guess. But no, it's been a crazy journey so far.
I think you've done a lot, and even just hearing you in the beginning saying that it's only been about 5 years, that you've been in the industry. That's a lot for me to be, you know, I want to pick your brain and learn how you got into education and sponsorships and international education and all this stuff. And, you know, a lot of that doesn't come to people that soon. So I think this is a great thing for people to hear, that, you know, you don't have to have 20 years experience. Like, you can, but you don't have to, and you can be successful and really make something of it if you're willing to put in the work.
I love like breaking stereotypes and stuff as well, like, you know, or I love breaking, like, what's the word I'm looking for, like, I like proving perceptions wrong in a way, like, you know, people always say, and hairdressing in many respects and then can be very old school in terms of like how things are done and how things are supposed to happen. But I like to kind of break the mold with that. Like, I mean, I kind of came into it and without all that, like coming up through a salon as an apprentice and, you know, sweeping the floor and all that kind of stuff. And I never really had that. I just kind of stepped straight into it, and I was like on the go from the get-go. And, you know, I want to be able to show people that they can do that too. And that's why now at Area we're setting up the academy and stuff. It's the kind of, I want to share with people starting in the industry our experiences and help them on their personal development journey and give them the confidence that they need, you know, to be able to go and reach whatever heights they want within their career. Because I never had any restrictions put on me, you know, like I didn't have that nasty manager or that boss that told me you're not good enough. I never really had that, which is, you know, I think pivotal, like within your career. And I think I did have that in cycling. Like I had that in cycling a few times. A few managers were just real nasty and stuff and told me that, you know, you'd never make it here, you'd never make it there. Yeah, I always had, you know, I always believed that I would do it anyway. So I was like, I'm just going to prove them wrong, you know, like it's always good to have somebody to prove wrong in a way, but in another way, it's like, if you're being brought down all the time like that, it's not going to get you to where you want to be either. So
I think it's also a big thing is finding your niche and finding what you are good at. I think for me, a lot of it, I've been really trying to do everything, you know, like I really am seeing all these people do avant-garde photo shoots and cutting and color. And I'm like, oh, I need to do that. I need to do that. But I actually don't have any vision for that. Like, that's not what I'm good at. I am good at color and I am good at talking. So, like, which is why I'm probably running behind all the time on my colors because I talk too much.
No, but for sure.
I think finding what you're good at, and that is what makes you feel good too. Because if you're trying to be good at all these things, you some people are, but I felt like I was trying to fit in these big maybe salons to be this polished kind of person and hairdresser that I am not. So I think that's what
I feel like it's important to, like, you know, I think it changes too all the time, what you feel like you're good at or what you enjoy at that particular moment. Because, you know, even now, like for me, going more into the educational side of the industry and more of the editorial side of the industry is kind of my main focus over working on the floor. Whereas like up to a couple of years ago, that would have been something that was only a dream, and working on the floor was my strength. So
Yeah.
I think at the moment I feel like I'm still kind of dipping my finger into every
Seeing
kind of,
what feels right.
yeah, kind of testing the water in different areas and just seeing what I like and what I don't like. I want to kind of try it all and
Yeah.
see what I like and what I don't like. And you know, I feel like you can, you know, eventually you'll find what your niche is, and still feel like I'm looking for that. I'm not really
Totally.
100% sure. And I
Yeah.
think it's an ever changing industry too, and you're always growing. So
That's what I love
being
about
able
it.
to being able to do a little bit of everything is good too, you know.
How do you feel like you've gone from being behind the chair and doing haircuts all the time to now being in this education space and also doing international education? Like how did you make that transition? Was it something that was offered to you? Did you come up with the concept of the academy? Like how did this kind of happen?
So at the moment, I'm still cutting full time on the shop.
Yeah.
And the academy stuff and the education is just kind of on the side. So the educational side of the industry, like I said from the beginning, when I discovered all that side of the industry on Instagram, that's something that I was really interested in, and I wanted to be involved in it. But I knew that I might, like, you know, have to just do my time and
Yeah.
learn a lot about myself first before I step into that. But it kind of just happened very quickly. I was cutting for about 2 years. I was only in Australia for about a year before the opportunity got presented to me. That was at the Hair Expo in Sydney, and this were setting up education team, their first ever Australian education team. So they had a few of us boys from area trial out for it and stuff. And
So they approached you guys through your salon or through your barbershop?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, they did. And then we met them in Sydney, and we did like a trial on their stand. And then we had a meeting the next day, and then we had to send another few little trials and stuff like that to them, and videos. I think they wanted to be able to just see that we could like speak and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then
And is that something that has always been comfortable for you, speaking and having these
yeah,
conversations and stuff? Like you feel comfortable with that?
I feel pretty comfortable with it now. I think when I was cycling, we used to get media trained. So
Okay.
like I had media training from when I was like maybe 15 or 16, because, you know, obviously you're going to be speaking to journalists and reporters and stuff after races. So you couldn't really be saying anything too controversial. Like, so we got
Which
media
isn't
training.
really a thing in the hair industry.
No, it's not really. And I
You can
like
be a
that
bit
too,
more
you know.
candid.
I feel like you can just say whatever you want really in the hair industry, and it's kind of accepted with, you know, within reason, you know.
Yeah.
I still feel that media training coming out of me sometimes, but
It's good
you
to
know, I
have
try
that
to keep.
professional side. I think sometimes that lacks in the industry too. You know, that we
Yeah,
don't maybe have that
I think so.
professionalism or that polished.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I still take from that is knowing where the line is, like, you know, not to cross that line. Like, no, I don't go too far with anything,
Yeah.
because you just never know who's listening. But so going
So you
back to
did the
the
auditions with Andis. That's where we were at for the
yeah, so we did that,
education.
and then pretty much they accepted a couple of us from the shop onto the team, and that's how the education stuff started. Really, it was kind of sink or
Cool.
swim, just like jump in the deep end. So I started doing classes for them, and then it kind of just happened organically. Like, you believe it or not, like I've never once sent a pitch email to a salon to see if they wanted to do
Amazing.
education. It's all been just people approaching me, and because the reason for that as well is because I haven't been doing it on a full-time basis. I've been still working in the shop, which I still feel is very important and something that I'll always do, because working in the shop is keeping me current too, and you know, seeing the upcoming trends and stuff like that, and really just keeping, you know, the body moving and keeping fresh on the tools and keeping, you know, technique fresh in the mind. But so yeah, I really kind of started doing the education part time just on the side, and then people would contact me online, and asked me to do like education with them one-on-one or in their salon. And then, it just kind of evolves from there. It's like a ball rolling down a hill,
Yeah.
and people contact you from different, they see you at Expo. Like, so the next year I went to Andis,
Which is where
the
we
Andis
met.
stand. Exactly, yeah. So like that's the thing. This is another thing. Even doing this interview is like, it comes from industry events like that. So
Yeah.
it's just like a ball rolling down a hill, and you
Love that
just
you
never
call it
know
an
what's
interview. Very formal. Love it.
yeah. Oh, I guess this chat, isn't it? Whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it. But um, yeah. So from there, a lot of different
And so
opportunities
when
just
they're
presented
messaging
themselves.
you and asking, hey, Owen, I want you for this event or this class at my salon, say in Melbourne, are they hiring you as yourself, or they're hiring you and you're getting paid through Andis? Or like, how does that kind of work? Do you decide that? Do you?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff. See, so Andis kind of act like an agency. So
Okay.
they set up the workshops, and you just step in and do some stuff once in a while. And with Andis, I've had some really really cool experiences at like Hair Expo. They've brought me to China a few times,
Oh my God, amazing.
which is pretty cool. So like that's a really cool little thing that I have going on with them, and a good relationship that I have going on with them. And then obviously the other stuff, yeah, I've done it for myself up to this point, and so now we're moving towards Area Academy,
Cool.
which I have founded with my current boss Jordan.
Yeah.
So we're founding that at the moment, and we're still working on it. And the coronavirus stuff is kind of holding us back slightly. We had a few courses we've had to reschedule.
Understandable.
But other than that, it would have been up and running already. I think our first workshop was meant to be maybe tomorrow, even. Or
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like
Sunday or something. Yeah.
I
Something
had just
crazy.
booked a Sunlights class as well for the week after. Like we had just got put into lockdown, and I was like, oh, like this was what I needed. We get that fuel and that fire from doing education and the excitement and prep and all of that. Like I love that. And the fact that, I missed it by 3 days or something of getting to go into the salon and educate. It
I
gets the
know.
ball rolling, exactly like you said.
Yeah, and it's just I get such a good feeling from it. I guess having all that experience from Andis and working on stage, and helping other people within the industry. Um, when I went back to the shop after that, like my buzz kind of had changed slightly. Now I still get a buzz out of working in the shop for sure, but I always knew, like, when I'm working in the shop, I'm just like, can't wait for that next education day, or
Yeah.
that's when I get most of my joy
Yeah.
and kind of good feeling from what I do. But yeah, I guess within the education side of things, it's kind of tough right now because it's kind of hard to know when we can actually set up the next workshop, or I don't want to reschedule anything again. But
Yeah,
it's very exciting
exactly.
for when we do get it up and running. Like right now, throughout this time in the lockdown period, I've been working every day, like putting hours in every day to different training plans, getting everything ready.
And are
Getting
you
it to like
coming up with the concepts for, say, I'm taking your course and the course is laid out with, we're going to do a fade, we're going to do scissors over comb, like whatever. I'm not a barber,
yeah.
but are you coming up with that curriculum, and how do you do that if you are?
Yeah, so I mean, over the years, like I said, when I started educating, it was sink or swim. So I just kind of jumped into the deep end, and pretty much I'd like to just share my thought process with people, and like the reason why we do everything, not just what we do, but the reason why we do it. And I feel like the more I've done that over the years, the more I've started to understand my own techniques and my own process behind what I do. And now it's just about putting that down on paper, really, and coming up
Yeah.
with plans, and it's also taking in all the other boys ideas as well. So I'm kind of like directing it and coming up with the ideas and the plans, but then the boys are also coming to me with their ideas and their plans, and we're just trying to grow the overall team, and make really really nice, like, and efficient and effective training plans for modern men's haircutting.
Cool. And do you ever worry? So, say I take a class, and I'm learning this new foil placement, whatever, And that's what I'm now doing in the salon. And then when people are asking me, I'm sharing that and I'm like, oh, but I didn't invent this placement. Do you ever feel like that you have to reinvent something a bit so you're not almost taking somebody else's education?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a tough
It's hard,
part
isn't
of
it?
it.
Because it's like we all are cutting and foiling and doing the same kind of thing, a bit different. How do you keep it relevant and unique, I guess, that
Mhm.
you're not
Yeah,
biting from
look,
someone else?
it's definitely important to keep it original. And I feel like by just being real and being ourselves, like I pride myself on that so far with my education. I'm just very real and I'm just myself. Like I don't like to think anyway that there's any other version of me than what you get. Like so, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, love it.
Um, and with what you're saying about that, I mean, at the beginning we always put out a disclaimer to the class and say, look, we're not coming up with any of this. Like everything that I'm talking about is something that I've learned from somewhere else, and I'm just kind of, I guess,
Reiterating it in
repeating it,
my own
but
way.
in my own way. And I'm taking a little bit of everything from different people, what I like, and what I've learned from, and kind of coming up with my most efficient way or my most effective
Yeah.
way of teaching it. And there's a difference between, I feel like there's a difference between innovation and creativity. Like being creative doesn't mean that we have to come up with something out of nothing and innovate it like from new. It's just
Yeah.
like seeing where there's a gap in the market, and seeing what's there and what's not there, and trying to like meet, like kind of cross that over in the middle, and that's where we're kind of aiming at.
I
And
think that's really
but that
important for people to understand because that's something that I have struggled with being like, I work for this big balayage company and I the things that Candy Say has come up with, like the terms and all of this stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. But how am I going to come up with something different? Like that's the
mm,
same, like, it's so hard. And I feel it discourages you
yeah,
being like, well, I could never do it because I'm not gonna think of this whole structure. But you're right, you take the pieces that you like from each, and I'm not claiming it as my own. I didn't invent balayage, but I have learned
yeah,
things from different people, and that's a good way to like you said, put a disclaimer in the beginning and say
mhm,
this is just what I practice and I use.
definitely. And I feel like a lot of the people who are in them education roles and teaching, they have learned it from somewhere else too. They're not making it up either.
Yeah.
um but obviously if you take somebody's work and copy it like completely
It's a
word to
bit
word,
shite.
like the exact same, then it's not really the right thing to do, is it? Like you shouldn't
Yeah.
really do that, because people will see through it if it's not original, and it's not like you're not going to be able to do it the same way or as effectively.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's something I feel like it's taken years. Like, so I started my education journey within the industry 3 years ago now, and now we're only really starting to set up the academy properly. So
Patience.
it's taken me that 3 years of experience and patience, like you said, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, really understanding where that gap is in the market, and trying to go for it,
Yeah.
and enjoying it at the same time. So no, it's been good. It's been good, but yeah, that's something I feel like we definitely see in the barbering industry as well. Like I don't know how closely you follow that, but there is a lot of people trying to achieve the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same with hairdressing, right? Like there's so many companies or salons or brands that are on the same journey, or the same, like you could say the same thing about the shop. We're all trying to cut people's hair, color people's hair, but generally there's enough clients to go around for everybody, and every salon or every education company will have a different flavor, and it's just
Yeah.
about like picking what flavor you want to add to your own skills.
Yeah.
um, so
Love it.
yeah, that's good.
And do you see yourself staying here in Australia? Like, I mean, a visa situation is a whole nother situation. So sometimes it
That's a
isn't even
separate.
about wanting to, but I know you're
That's a
saying you've been
separate.
here
That's
4 years. You
the
must be
whole
coming to
visa.
the end kind of visa options, or do you have a
Yeah, so
plan?
I'm currently I have a couple of more years left on my visa here.
Okay.
Um, I don't really have too much of a plan beyond that. I would love to stay here. I'd love if the rules changed, or if there was a way I
Yeah.
could get permanent residency. I would love to stay here for the foreseeable future. I just see myself as you know, I've built a profile here now, and I can kind of do what I want to do essentially and achieve the goals that I want to achieve here. Whereas, like, you know, my plan B or my other option, which I never really like to have plan Bs. Like, even when I was cycling, I didn't have a plan B. But because I feel like when plan A gets too hard, you might just revert to plan B and say,
Yeah,
it's okay,
totally.
plan B. So I'm just trying to stick with like one track mind at the moment, like, and just work on staying here. But you know, my other options don't really intrigue me too much. Like, I love the lifestyle here and stuff. Like, you know, you can go down to the
I think
beach
if
if
you
you
end
want.
up, if you want to stay, you find a way to stay.
Yeah, like, well, look, I'll do my best. I
Yeah.
won't go down without a fight anyway. That's for sure. I'll try and stay. I feel like, you know, this is where my career is for the foreseeable, and you know my personal life too. I feel like it would suffer back at home or anywhere else. So it's no, this is my plan anyway, to stay here.
Love it.
Fingers crossed.
And what's the next goal? What's the big dream?
For the moment, I just want to be able to kind of split my time between education and the shop equally. I feel like that's the next goal. I never like to look too far into the future because, like, you know, 5 years ago I was a cyclist and I never even thought about hair. So I
Yeah,
don't
I think
really
that's
like.
a really great takeaway for people watching this, and why I wanted to have these conversations is I think that we all feel like we have to have it figured out, or oh my God, I'm 25 and I haven't, like, all these things. And it's like exactly what you said. 5 years ago, you were in Ireland riding a bike, and
Yeah,
now you're this great, amazing educator and barber and living this life in Australia. And I mean, we're in lockdown, and who could have thought of that? But
yeah,
you're
like,
right.
you
I
just
think
never
we get
know.
caught
It's
up and
so
discouraged
much out
by the
of control.
failure that we see potentially happening, that we don't take the leap.
Yeah, just so much that's out of our control. Like, you can't really even think too far ahead. Obviously, you know, you got to have an idea or something to work towards, but I don't like to really think about the long term plans, as they're always changing. You know, like, something like right now it's the academy, and that's the next thing that I want to focus on, and getting that up and running properly. And then after that, we'll see what happens. You know,
Yeah.
along the journey of making that happen, I'm gonna, you know, come, I guess, in contact with a lot of other different potential opportunities, or you know, things that might
And that's the
spin my
really
life
great
in
thing with
a different direction.
education too, is you get to meet so many people. Like, you go
Yeah,
to a
people who
salon, you
share
meet
the
10
same.
other barbers, like,
Yeah, and generally it's the people who are doing education, are people who share a similar kind of passion for the industry and growing and learning than you do. Like, so actually, you know what? Like, another good thing and that people might be able to take away from it is, like, do educate and share you know, your knowledge with people, because in turn, like, it actually in turn helps you to learn more as well. Like, by sharing, you learn more about yourself and your skills and your, like, you as a person,
yeah.
um for example. But, and you know, I mean, you get to meet so many people who are like-minded, and share a similar passion for the industry as you. So, like, that's why I really enjoy it. And you know, it's got that different element to it compared to the shop as well, because in the shop you're meeting people from your community, you know. So, you know, as a educator, your kind of focus shifts from, you know, helping people within the community, and you know,
Yeah.
having a chat with them, and kind of, like, you know, talking to people almost like a counselor, like, for their problems,
I was
to
just
then
gonna say,
helping.
it's different than being the therapist to being the educator.
Exactly, and then you go from that to, you know, helping other people within your industry, um, better their skills and their understanding, and give them a new perspective so that they can potentially charge more money, so that
Yeah.
they can earn a better way of living. So it's like you're helping people in both ways, and that's, you know, something that I get, internal satisfaction from.
Me
So
too.
that's the next goal: just work on the area education stuff, the academy, build that up, and just see where it takes us, because you know, you just never know what's going to happen next.
Love it. I feel like that has been a very informative session for myself and all you people watching. or listening or
I feel
whatever the heck this is gonna be.
like I said at the start, like I feel I almost feel a bit like weird sometimes when I'm talking about myself like that so much, but I guess that's what this is for, you know. And I feel like I have a lot, just so much more. I could talk like this for hours, to be honest.
Yeah.
I could just talk about different topics and stuff like that, you know, my views and how I perceive things and stuff like that. But we'll save that for another time or for my classes.
Love
Don't
it.
want to get too.
Yeah, save a little so that they, this is a good promotion so that they come to you. Think about how much more I could share if
You
you
know
had
what?
a
Like
full day with me.
at the same time too, like I try to keep it real. Like I mean, look, we're cutting hair. Like we're not, you know, doctors. We're not curing coronavirus or cancer or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're cutting hair, so like, you know, I try not to ever let things get away from me either. Like and that's why working in the shop I feel is so important, and
Grounds
I'll
you a
always
bit.
continue. Yeah, and that's why, like, that's when you said what's your next goal or your dream, like like splitting my time between education and the shop is important to me, because still having them connections with my clients and the boys in the shop and the team is important. And even like being at home here with my, you know, with my girlfriend and stuff is really important to me too. Like I see some people out there traveling the world doing education, and it's great, but it can be a bit lonely. And I know that what that's like from cycling. It's a bit of a lonely existence. You know, you don't really have that. You know, it looks great on paper for people looking at your Instagram,
Yeah.
and you're putting up the highlights, but they don't see all the shit parts, you know, or they don't see like all of the times where you're really working hard and for nothing. Like,
Yeah,
or
totally. And that is a massive thing in our industry. That is something I've always said from the beginning. We do so much shit for free.
so much.
Hairdressers, like,
Yeah.
how many photo shoots have you been on, or classes that you go to assist? Like, I have done so many for free hours because we love it. But then I also think, why is it just like, maybe it's not just hairdressing, but why do we succumb to that and think that it's okay to do all this stuff for free too? But
Yeah.
you put in so many hours and there's so much behind the scenes that
Mm.
you work your ass off. And exactly what you said,
Yeah.
you are working full time in the salon and still on your days off developing and doing all this. And that's the difference, I think, too, between people
That's
who
the
are going
difference.
to
Yeah.
make it or not.
It's that extra few percent. When you get to any level of anything, it's just putting in that extra few percent is what's going to get you. It's going to make the difference between being like a good stylist and being a great stylist, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like, you know, the stuff that you do for free, a lot of the time you can't really put a price on that stuff. The takeaways and the learnings that you get from that
100%.
of
And then
yourself.
networking, the people that I've met on photo shoots, and even for this situation of me being like, I feel proud of myself that I've moved to another country where I didn't know anyone. And maybe you relate from, I don't know about Ireland, but I'm obviously from North America. So there's a whole different celebrity, say, hairdressing tier of Instagram people, and you go to the
Yeah,
behind the chair show and all the people who are on stage. People here have no idea who they even are. So
yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, you move and I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. And the fact
It's
now that,
refreshing. It's refreshing at that point. But continue. Sorry.
no,
You know,
but
it's
it's
nice
just
to get
interesting
the,
that was a huge eye opener for me when I came here. And say someone like me, who I've worked for Candy Shaw, who I think is like, God, and me being
yeah.
like, and people coming here and people being like, who? I'm like, what? What do you mean,
Yeah,
who?
I know.
Like, it's shocking. And the Instagram celebs here and all these influencers are so different everywhere you go that I think it is important to, exactly what you said, not get caught up in that, because you can become this
Yeah,
massive person in Australia and you go back to Ireland, nobody knows who you are. Or
yeah. I never really like to get caught up in that at all.
yeah.
And you know, for me, I see a lot of, you know, there's one thing looking at people from, on Instagram or wherever you may find your inspiration, and looking at them for what they are like and looking towards them and saying, okay, I would love to be like that one day. But I've learned a lot from people by looking at them and saying, you know what, I actually don't want to be like that. I don't want
Yeah.
to be like that person or whatever. So it's important to stick on your own journey. But for me, it's the same. It's so refreshing coming out here, and you know, there's such talent in the industry in Australia that I didn't know about when I was in Ireland.
And it's quite a small group, as much as there's so many of us. When you go, obviously you're going to the expos and the awards nights and all these things. Every event that you go to, it's the same people because we're all on this same island. You're not coming from anywhere
Yeah,
else. That it
definitely.
is nice because it's the same people again and again, but also sometimes can get a bit repetitive.
And it's, like going back to the initial point, like doing stuff for free sometimes ends up being the most valuable stuff that you do. Like I've got a few boys like who have come to me over time, like, and said, like, why, there's a show or something, or a showcase and an open night, and they're like, how much are they paying you? And it's like, they're not paying me anything. Like, but I get to go and showcase my work to a bunch of, like, 500 hairdressers or something.
That's where I saw
Cool is
you
that?
first, I think, was at the Masters open mic night.
Yeah, but it's like, so that's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's like, why would I not do something like that? Like, you get an opportunity to present yourself to hundreds of people, and what if half of them ended up wanting to book you to do work at their shop?
Exactly. That is literally exactly it. And I just got this advice from my boss, who I'm working for, Belinda Keeley, and she was like, put stuff out for free. And I think as educators or as people, we're like, oh my God, I'm not gonna show you how to paint a hairline. Like, you have to pay me for that.
Yeah.
But just because I've shown you how
That's
to
ego.
do it doesn't
that's
mean
ego.
that you're not going to book me, because you're going to be like, holy shit, she painted that hairline great. I actually want to know more. And exactly what you said, I'm watching you in that open mic night being like, God, he's seems cool, or probably
just like
my God, this guy's a loser. But watching you do that, if I was wanting to learn barbering, I'd be like, oh, I saw this guy and I kind of vibed with him, and I like the way that he explained things, and that's how you're exactly right, how you're going to get the booking.
Yeah, and like, that's more valuable to you and builds like I don't know, it's profile building, isn't it? It's just all about building up your, depending on what your goals are, it's like profile building. And I see that as like, people will pay a videographer or a photographer thousands of dollars to do promotional work for them.
Yeah.
But then they won't do something like that for free, where they're getting free promotional work. It doesn't really make sense. And then, on the other side of it, what you said there, and you touched on something just there, it was like, somebody won't do something without getting paid for it. That's ego, and you're getting a little bit too, in my Irish ways. People in Ireland say this a lot, and I'm not really traditionally Irish in disrespect, but you don't want to be getting too far ahead of yourself either. Like, sometimes you need to reel it back in a little bit and realize, you're not like, you're cutting hair, you're not, like I said, saving lives, or you're not, changing the world all that much. It all depends on your goals. But like, doing stuff for free is essential. And I'm the same. Like, I've done so much online for free, put out so many videos.
You have your YouTube channel, which I think is so cool. And I've always been like, well, why would you do that? You're putting your classes out there for free, but you're right, you're putting snippets.
But you know what, there's, like we were saying earlier about like having your own education and your own kind of way of doing things. There's only so much, in my opinion, that you can learn technique wise. But for me, if I was to go and take a class right now, I'd want to be going to the class for the experience, and to be around that person, and to be inspired from them, and to learn their ways. Or like, if I like someone's work, I'll go to their class, even though you can probably go to someone else's class and learn the same amount of information, but you might not particularly like their work, or how they are as a person, or I don't know. There's like so many elements to it. But I don't know. I just feel like putting yourself out there, it attracts more people towards your stuff, and I mean, you essentially then get the people who the people who come to see you for you, are going to be the clients that you want. So people buy into like why you do things, not what you do. That's what I'm kind of to get at.
And who you are too, like.
Yeah, exactly. And what you stand for, so like the reason why behind it. Like, I put that stuff out there for free and do all of this stuff for free because I genuinely enjoy doing it, like, I love the content that I get away from it. I like having the creative freedom to do whatever I want in front of of my peers. I like the challenge that it sets for myself in trying to do that too. Like I like the feeling of being nervous, and like I don't know, I just get like a thrill from that or something. And I
Yeah,
guess, you know,
I
in
even felt
cycling,
it this
probably
morning. Like,
had
I
that.
don't really get nervous very often. And like, as soon as I sent you the link, I was like, oh, I'm like, I have to pee. I'm having a nervous pee. Like, I just was like, what am I going to talk about? And then I'm like, oh, just be yourself. Like, you just can talk, you know? Like,
Yeah,
there's no
yeah, yeah,
script,
and
there's no planning before you know, I didn't even talk to you before this. I just sent
exactly.
you a DM and said, do you want
I
to
love
talk to
that.
me?
I literally I love that feeling. Like I almost like chase that feeling in a way. It's like even before I do anything like shows at expos and whatever in front of loads of people, it's like, what is the worst thing? I go over it in my head. I'm like, what is the worst thing that can happen? You know?
Yeah. What
And
is? Tell us.
when you think of the consequences of what that is, the consequences aren't really like that crazy. So like, you know, even if the worst possible outcome happens, nothing's really going to change for me as a person, you know, or my happiness or whatever. Um, but I don't know. You see, this is the thing when you say what is the worst thing that can happen. I don't even really think about that. Like I always
Yeah.
assume best case scenario. Everything that I ever do, I always assume best case scenario. I guess
Love it.
maybe like I don't know what would be the worst thing that could happen.
I get this horrific nervous rash,
Get booed
but
off
it's
stage or
not even
something.
like
You
nervous.
know?
It's probably like happen now that I'm talking about it, it'll start happening. But I get this like rash up my neck, and then when I public speak, and I'm confident, I don't have any issue talking, but I get it. And then once I know it's happening, it's like, oh, you have a rash. I'm like, oh my god, don't point it out. It's gonna get worse. Like, I
I know.
hate that about myself, and I can't control it. It's not because I'm nervous or if I'm mad or if I'm uncomfortable, anything it happens. It's all up my neck. Like, I
I
hate
know.
that.
It's just,
I always wear a turtleneck.
I know. I get a little bit like nervous sweats in a way, but not like too over the
I
top.
don't know what's worse.
I kind of get like the kind of sticky hands a little bit right before I go on, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
But you're
But
right.
that's kind
That's
of
the feeling you chase. And once you get on stage and you feel comfortable, and like, that's what we're all, the people who like that, that's what we're chasing.
it's like a release afterwards too when you
Such a
finish up and
high.
you realize you're like, that was actually great, you know. And then it's just nice. I feel like it's just a nice way to. I like to be in a position, or my ideal goal would be to be in a position where people would kind of aspire to operate the way that you operate,
Yeah.
or like, you know.
I think that's
And
what we want too. Like when we are people who are wanting to chase that, like I want to be, for me, it was Sonia Dove, who is this amazing colorist. And I went to a behind the chair show and she was on stage. And that was the first time probably I just finished my apprenticeship and I went to this massive show. It was in New Orleans. And I was
mhm,
watching her on stage and I was bawling because I was like, that is, and she's, I don't know how old she is. She's in her 50s or something. And I was like, I have time to get there, you know, like those people, like we're coming up and we're hopefully going to be the next
mhm,
that, you know, and it is attainable. But I remember watching that and being like, this is it. That was my moment that I was like, I can do
yeah,
something more. I could be up there. But then I get that flip of being like, but I actually don't have the ideas to share. Like, I just want to be up there talking, maybe.
no,
I
I
just
think
don't have.
you know what though. What's really interesting about that is like I feel in a way that I never want to get there. Like I want to continuously just be like that one step kind of away from it. You know, like I want to always be chasing it. You know,
Yeah.
like say if I look at it like you're going up the stairs, like or like a ladder, and you know when you're right near the top of that ladder, I just want somebody to extend a few more steps on every time. You know, and just keep
Yeah.
kind of going that way because I feel like I learned that from say from my experience of creating the collection that I did this year, and
Which is
that's the
amazing.
first bit of editorial work that I did this ever, and you know for months I was creating it by myself, come up with all the ideas, did everything, and the days of the shoots and stuff, I found that you know even though in that initial moment I wasn't getting any gratification externally, I felt internally the happiest. So
Yeah.
now when it's out and it's you know it's been published in a few different places and whatever happens with it now, I'm kind of like I never get overjoyed by it because I've already had that
The joy
feeling
was
of,
in creating it.
yeah. So like what I'm trying to say really is like, you know, it's more about the process and the journey of like growing and creating something for me rather than the actual results itself. Like, you know, the result can be actually a bit of an anticlimax sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and what you need to realize is like we kind of only really need to live in the now, you know, like not to be too preachy about it or anything, but
No,
like
I like it.
living in the moment now and working on what you're working on now and being happy with that. Brings me back to a point that I said earlier, and that's like being happy with what you have while you work for what you want, and that's, I feel like, the ultimate place of happiness.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the same thing over here, you know, like I've had, you know, and money and stuff like that is not like a measurable kind of way of deciding how happy you are. Like I've had $20 in my bank account over here, and I've had, you know,
We're both
20,000
in
or
this
or
situation right now where
whatever,
we're
you know,
not
like,
getting anything.
or if I had 200,000, like, yeah, there's a few material things that would make you happier, but like I've been kind of comfortable and I've been completely uncomfortable, but like when I look at it on a larger scale of things, I've never been any happier or unhappier. So
That's so
it's just
nice.
about
That's
living
really good information.
in the present moment, you know, and kind of just working on what you're working on, and you know, having something to aspire towards is important to keep the fire lighting. I feel like it just adds fuel to the fire, and like that's another analogy that's like similar to the state, like to the ladder, you know, like when the fire is about to run out, like just put a little bit more coal in and keep it moving, you know. That's
In
my
Canada, we put a bit more wood on the fire.
yeah, exactly. Throw another log in.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's
Last night we got stuck watching this 2-hour, 2-year survival in the wilderness show. I don't even know how. I've turned my Irish partner into a Canadian lumberjack. And I was like watching it. I'm like, what the hell are we even watching? Like, oh my God. Ridiculous.
I know.
Topic.
But yeah, I like to use a lot of analogies and this and that, but yeah, I feel like, you know, I am quite a deep person when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like I've always had that kind of real strong mindset, I feel, when it comes to achieving my goals, and nobody can tell me, if I believe that I can do something, like nobody can really tell me any different. And that's why I feel like so confident with the academy and where it's going to go. And you know,
Yeah.
we haven't even really done anything with it yet. Like we haven't filmed any content. We've done nothing really. We've done a couple of training days internally with our staff and getting everyone on the same page. I've been working for hours on it, like, but in terms of promoting it and external, we've not really done that much. So I'm looking forward to being able to share that with everybody, and I guess that's what I'm looking forward to within the future of my career here in Australia. So
love it. Well, thank you so much for talking to me and wanting to talk to me. And I feel like this has just been for my own self really
pleasure.
inspiring and motivating, and I think
it's been an
people will
absolute
get
pleasure.
a lot out of it.
And like, you know, I think it's really great with what you're doing. Like I said at the beginning, it's like it's great to like throughout this time. I feel like if you come out of this lockdown time with nothing new started up or nothing new that you're working on, or you know, you've kind of wasted it in a way. So like whoever is going to listen to this, like use it for your advantage. Like use it to your advantage, I should say.
Totally. I've never had the time. Like I am an absolute night owl. Like I am, you saying you're going for a morning cycle, I'm like, oh great, I'll have a lie-in and we'll be ready to go at noon, because I thrive at nighttime. The only time I get my ideas is like after 8 p.m. and I've been able to stay up till 3 a.m. and just power out and pump out these thumbnails, and I've got like pages and pages of notes and shit that I would never have been able to do before, because I got to get up for my job in the morning, and I don't function if I don't sleep like that. And it's just, this time has allowed me anyway, to do something that I never ever would have done. I would have never put the effort into this if I was working.
Yeah, 100%. And like, you know, when you come home from work too, you're just drained, like all your energy from talking to people all day, and you're just energy from standing up all day. You're just drained. You don't have the energy to put into something new and something fresh. And for us, like, you know, longer term with the academy, it would have been our goal to start like a beginner's course next year, maybe once we had like a year of business done with upskilling, and now I think coming out of this, we're going to be pretty close to putting together the full beginners course. So
Amazing.
that's very exciting too. And it's just given me a time to get my health on track. I haven't been drinking any alcohol, which is very un-Irish of me.
Wow. Very un-Irish.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I'm coming out of it thinking I might give it up altogether. It's actually slowing me down.
Wowzers. Good on you.
Just only for special occasions like hair expo and
Like
stuff
a good
like that.
hair expo.
Yeah, like something like
if
that.
it doesn't even exist anymore, we'll have to invent our own or something.
I know. I'll just end
That
up
can be our
embarrassing
next feat.
I'll have 2 beers and I'll be embarrassing myself. So. I know.
Classic Crystal.
But yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And the chatting, it's even chats like this. It's just I really enjoy it. Like I'm
Me too.
obviously sharing my insights and my thoughts with somebody else who is passionate and in their niche in the industry as well, and it's something different. You get a little bit of a different insight, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your episodes and the amazing people that you get on.
Amazing. Well, I am going to click just stop recording, but yeah, thank you so much. And I'm really appreciative of people. I think it surprises me when people are like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you. I'm like, really? Like, oh, you want to?
Yeah, nobody's really doing it, so it's like, why not? Like, I mean, it's a good opportunity.
This is how you start something,
It's the same as a stage, like I look at everything like a stage. Everything, it's another opportunity for certain people to hear you speak, or an opportunity to present yourself.
Yeah.
Similar to like the open mic or whatever.
Yeah.
So no, thank you.
Love it. Thank you.